She weighed 110 pounds soaking wet. He was 200 pounds of dead weight muscle and expensive Italian wool. Physics said it was impossible. But on a freezing Tuesday night in Chicago, Minna Jenkins didn't care about physics. She plunged into the icy Chicago River and dragged the city's most dangerous man out of a sinking Maserati. She thought she was just saving a stranger. She didn't know she had just put her hands on Dante Moretti, the capo of the Midwest outfit. And she definitely didn't know that by saving his life, she had just signed a death warrant for her own. But what happened after he woke up? That's the part that shocked the entire underworld. This is the story of the waitress, the wolf, and the secret that shattered them both. The wind off Lake Michigan didn't just blow, it bit. It chewed through layers of clothing until it found bone. Minna Jenkins adjusted the beanie low over her ears, shoving her hands deep into the pockets of her oversized army surplus jacket. It was 2:15 a.m. The shift at Lou's all-night diner had ended 15 minutes ago. And now came the hardest part of Minna's day, the walk to the hidden spot under the Wacker Drive overpass, where she parked her rusted 1998 Honda Civic. That car was her home. It had been for 6 months, ever since the medical bills for her late mother had swallowed the house, the savings, and Minna's credit score. She kept her head down, counting cracks in the pavement. 1, 2, 3. The screech of tires wasn't unusual in downtown Chicago. But this wasn't just a screech. It was a roar, a V8 engine pushed to its limit, followed by the sickening crunch of metal on concrete and a massive splash that echoed off the canyon of skyscrapers. Minna froze. She looked toward the bridge railing. A section of the guardrail was gone. Twisted metal fingers pointed down toward the black, oily water of the river below. "Oh God," she whispered. Most people would call 911. Minna reached for her phone, a cracked Android with no service plan, only capable of emergency calls, but her thumb hovered over the button. Police meant questions. Questions meant ID checks. ID checks meant they'd find the unpaid parking tickets and tow the Civic. If they towed the car, she died on the street. She looked over the edge. Below, the taillights of a black sedan were bobbing, rapidly disappearing into the murk. The driver's side window was smashed water pouring in like a waterfall. "Help!" a voice echoed. Not a scream, but a command. Choked gargling, but furious. Minna didn't think. The adrenaline hit her system like a shot of pure caffeine. She dropped her backpack, kicked off her worn-out sneakers, and vaulted over the railing. The drop was 15 feet. She hit the freezing water feet first, the shock stealing the air from her lungs. It felt like being stabbed by 1,000 needles at once. She surfaced gasping, thrashing against the current. The sedan was nose down now. She swam. Every stroke was a battle against the numbing cold. She reached the driver's side door, just as the water reached the roofline. The man inside was slumped over the wheel. Blood matted his dark hair. He was huge, broad shoulders filling the bucket seat, a tuxedo jacket strained across his back. "Hey!" Minna screamed, grabbing his shoulder. "Wake up!" He groaned, his head lolling back. His eyes fluttered open, dark, almost black, unfocused. "My legs." The water was at his chin. "I'm going to pull you out," Minna yelled over the rushing water. She jammed her feet against the side of the car, reached through the shattered window, and grabbed him by the lapels of his coat. He was heavy, impossibly heavy. "Move!" She grunted, heaving with everything she had. The car gave a lurch, sinking deeper. The suction was taking hold. "Leave me." The man rasped, his voice sounding like gravel grinding together. "It's a trap." "Shut up and push," Minna screamed. She dug her fingers into the expensive fabric of his suit. She thought of her mom. She thought of the cold nights in the Civic. She channeled every ounce of rage she had at the world into her arms. With a primal scream, she yanked. At the same time, the man seemed to find a spark of survival instinct. He kicked off the floorboards. He came free like a cork from a bottle tumbling out of the window just as the Maserati gave a final glug and vanished into the depths. Now came the real struggle. Minna grabbed him around the chest, kicking for the embankment. He was barely conscious, a dead weight, threatening to drag them both down to the silt. "Don't you die on me," she hissed, water splashing into her mouth. "I am not dying for a stranger tonight." She dragged him onto the muddy, trash-strewn bank under the bridge. She collapsed her chest, heaving her limbs, shaking violently from hypothermia. Beside her, the man coughed, expelling river water. He rolled onto his back. Even wet and bleeding, he radiated power. He wore a platinum watch that probably cost more than Minna had earned in her entire life. Sirens wailed in the distance, approaching fast. Minna scrambled backward, crab-walking in the mud. The man reached out his hand, clamping around her ankle. His grip was iron. "Wait," he croaked. He blinked, trying to clear the blood from his eyes. He looked at her, Healy looked at her. He took in the frayed cuffs of her jeans, the hollows of her cheeks, the sheer terror in her eyes. Who are you?" "I'm nobody," Minna stammered. She kicked her leg free. "I wasn't here." "My name," he wheezed, trying to sit up, "is Dante. You need to know." "I don't want to know." Minna scrambled up the embankment, ignoring the pain in her frozen feet. "I was never here." She ran. She grabbed her shoes and backpack from the bridge and vanished into the shadows of the alleyways, just as the first squad car screeched to a halt at the scene. She didn't know she had left something behind. In the struggle, her cheap silver locket, the one with the only remaining photo of her mother, had snapped off and fallen into the mud, right next to the hand of the devil himself. The next morning, Chicago was grey. Minna was working the breakfast rush at Lou's. Her body felt like it had been put through a meat grinder. Every muscle screamed, and she had a nasty bruise on her shoulder from hitting the water. She moved on autopilot, pouring coffee, flipping pancakes, dodging the wandering hands of the regulars. She kept her head down, avoiding the TV mounted in the corner. "Hey, Minna, you see this?" Lou, the owner, pointed a greasy spatula at the screen. "Big shot Mafia guy almost drowned last night, right off Wells Street." Minna froze the coffee pot, hovering over a mug. On the screen, a news anchor stood in front of the river. The headline read, "Attempted hit reputed mob boss. Dante Moretti survives car plunge." Dante. The name sent a shiver down her spine that had nothing to do with the drafty diner. "They say he swam out on his own." A customer at the counter grunted, chewing on bacon. "Guy is a beast, 200 pounds of muscle. They say he walked away before the cops even got down the bank." Minna exhaled. He didn't tell them. He didn't tell them about the girl. Good, she thought. He thinks it was a fever dream. I'm safe. She wasn't safe. At 10:00 a.m., the bell above the door jingled. The diner went quiet. Not the usual quiet, a heavy, suffocating silence. Two men walked in. They were dressed in charcoal suits that fit too well. They didn't look like customers. They looked like sharks entering a swimming pool. One was older, bald, with a scar running through his eyebrow. The other was younger, handsome, but with dead eyes. They scanned the room. Their eyes passed over Lou, over the truck drivers, and locked on to Minna. Minna's heart hammered against her ribs. Run! But there was nowhere to go. The kitchen exit was blocked by boxes of frozen fries. The bald man walked straight to the counter. He placed something on the laminate surface. It was a silver locket. Minna's breath hitched. She instinctively reached for her neck. "We checked for fingerprints," the man said. His voice was soft, terrifyingly polite. "Not in the police database, but the picture inside. High school yearbook records are easy to cross-reference if you have the right friends." He slid the locket forward. "Minna Jenkins, class of 2018, dropped out 6 months ago. No fixed address." Minna gripped the coffee pot like a weapon. "What do you want?" "Mr. Moretti would like to return your property," the man said, personally. "I can't," Minna said, her voice trembling. "I have a shift. I didn't see anything." "Tell him I didn't see anything." The younger man stepped forward. "It wasn't a request, Miss Jenkins." Lou stepped out from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a rag. "Hey, fellas, if she don't want to go." The bald man simply turned his head and looked at Lou. It was a look that promised fire and ash. Lou stopped talking. He looked at Minna, eyes wide with apology. "It's okay, Lou," Minna said, putting the coffee pot down. Her hands were shaking. She untied her apron. If she fought, they would hurt Lou. They might hurt everyone in here. "I'll go," she said. She followed them out to a waiting black SUV with tinted windows. As the door closed, sealing her in the scent of leather and expensive cologne, Minna realized the true gravity of her mistake. She hadn't just saved a man. She had interfered in a war. The car ride was silent. They drove away from the city center, toward the Gold Coast, the wealthy district. They pulled up to a high-rise with a private elevator. Minna was escorted up to the penthouse. The doors opened directly into a living room that was bigger than the entire house she grew up in. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city she usually slept beneath. Sitting in a leather armchair by the window was Dante Moretti. He looked worse than he had the night before. His arm was in a sling, and there were stitches across his forehead, but the intensity was the same. He was watching her like a predator watches a rabbit that has wandered into its den. "Leave us," Dante said. The two henchmen nodded and vanished into the hallway. Minna stood by the door, hugging herself. She was wearing her stained diner uniform, smelling like old grease. He was wearing a silk robe that probably cost more than her car. "Come closer," he commanded. Minna took 2 hesitant steps. "Look, Mr. Moretti, I don't want any trouble. I just saw the car and—" "Why?" he interrupted. "Why? What? Why did you pull me out?" He tried to stand wincing in pain, but forced himself upright. He towered over her. "You saw a car go off a bridge. You saw a man who looked like this." He gestured to his scarred face and imposing frame. "Most people would have filmed it with their phones, or walked away. You jumped into freezing water." He took a step closer. The air between them crackled. "Who sent you?" he asked, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Was it Silvio? Did he want me alive so he could finish the job himself?" "Nobody sent me," Minna snapped. Fear was giving way to indignation. "I'm a waitress. I sleep in my car. I don't know who Silvio is. I pulled you out because you were drowning, you idiot." Dante blinked. The insult seemed to catch him off guard. "You sleep in your car?" he asked, his eyes narrowing. "Yes, a '98 Civic. It's very cozy," she said sarcastically. "Can I go now? I'm going to get fired. Dante studied her face. He looked at her defiant chin, her tired eyes, the way she stood her ground, despite being terrified. He saw the bruise on her shoulder, the one she got saving him. He walked over to a desk and picked up a file. My mechanics pulled the car out this morning, Dante said. The brake lines were cut. The steering column was tampered with. It was an assassination attempt. He looked at Minna. You are the only witness. You saw the car go in. Did you see anyone on the bridge? No, Minna said. It was empty. Are you sure? I'm sure. Dante sighed. He walked back to the window looking out at the grey sky. Then we have a problem, Minna Jenkins, because whoever cut those brakes knows I'm Eluv. And once they find out a homeless girl pulled me out, they're going to wonder what you saw. They're going to come for you to tie up loose ends. Minna felt the blood drain from her face. So what are you saying? Dante turned back to her. A strange, dark look crossed his face. I'm saying you can't go back to your car. You can't go back to the diner. I have to work. You work for me now, Dante said. It wasn't an offer. Until I find the traitor in my organization, you are under my protection. You stay here. Here. Minna looked around the penthouse. With you, absolutely not. I'd rather take my chances on the street. Dante stepped into her personal space. He smelled of antiseptic and sandalwood. He reached out and gently touched the bruise on her shoulder. His touch was surprisingly warm. On the street, you're dead in 24 hours, he said softly. Stay here, and you might survive. Besides, his eyes locked onto hers, intense and unreadable. I owe you a life debt, and a Moretti always pays his debts. For the first 3 days, Minna Jenkins lived in a state of luxurious imprisonment. The penthouse was a marvel of modern architecture, a fortress of glass and steel floating above the Chicago skyline. It had a kitchen fully stocked with food Minna hadn't tasted in years. Imported cheeses, fresh fruit, steaks that looked like marble. It had a shower with 6 different heads and water pressure that felt like a massage. It had a bed with sheets so soft they felt like weaving clouds. But the door was locked, and the elevator required a biometric scan. Dante was a ghost. He spent most of his time in his study, a dark room filled with cigar smoke and the low murmur of angry phone calls. Minna would see him occasionally limping down the hallway, his face pale, his jaw set in a permanent scowl. He ignored her, treating her like a piece of furniture he had acquired but didn't know where to place. Minna spent her time pacing. She felt like a stray cat brought indoors, grateful for the warmth, but terrified of the door closing forever. On the 4th morning, the cabin fever broke. Minna marched to the study door and pounded on it. Go away, came the growl from inside. Minna opened the door. Dante was sitting behind a massive mahogany desk, shirtless, trying to change the dressing on his shoulder wound. The stitches were angry and red. He looked up, his eyes flashing with irritation. I said, get out. You can't reach that angle, Minna said, stepping into the room. And if it gets infected, you die. Then who protects me? Dante stared at her, stunned by her audacity. Before he could protest, Minna grabbed the gauze and antiseptic from the desk. Sit still, she ordered. She worked quickly, her hands rough from scrubbing diner tables and cold from sleeping in a car, were surprisingly gentle. She cleaned the wound and applied fresh tape. Dante watched her the whole time, his breathing shifting. He wasn't used to being touched with anything other than violence or lust. This was practical, caring. You have good hands, he murmured. I wanted to be a nurse, Minna said, her voice tight. Before my mom got sick. Then I had to be a daughter, then a debtor, then a waitress. Now I'm a prisoner. She finished the bandage and stepped back. You're not a prisoner, Minna. Then let me go to work. Lou is going to fire me, and I need to move my car. It's street cleaning day on Wacker. I'll get a ticket. Dante's face hardened. The vulnerability vanished, replaced by the mask of the capo. Sit down. I don't want to sit. Sit down. Minna sat. Dante reached into a drawer and pulled out a manila envelope. He slid it across the desk. I had my men go to Wacker Drive yesterday, he said, to retrieve your belongings. Minna opened the envelope. Inside were photos. The first photo showed the underpass. The second showed her Honda Civic, or what was left of it. The car was a blackened, twisted skeleton. It had been firebombed. The windows were blown out. The interior reduced to ash. Everything she owned, her clothes, her sleeping bag, her sketchbook. The hidden stash of $40 she was saving for winter boots was gone. Minna stared at the photo. Her hand flew to her mouth. She didn't cry. She couldn't. The shock was too absolute. That rusted metal box was her sanctuary. It was the only thing standing between her and the abyss. They found it, she whispered. They were looking for you. Dante said, his voice devoid of pity, but heavy with gravity. They torched the car, hoping you were inside sleeping. If you had gone back there that night, you would be Ash Minna. Minna dropped the photo. She felt sick. Who? She asked. I don't know yet, Dante said, his fists clenching until his knuckles turned white. But I have a feeling we're going to find out tonight. Tonight, the Moretti Foundation Gala, Dante said. It's the biggest event of the season. Every politician, judge and rival family head will be there. Rumors are spreading that I'm dying, that I'm weak. I need to show them I'm still the king of this city. He stood up, grabbing a fresh shirt. And you, he said, pointing at her, you are coming with me. Me? Minna laughed, a hysterical, brittle sound. Look at me, Dante. I'm a homeless waitress. I don't belong at a gala. I belong in the kitchen, washing the dishes. You belong where I say you belong, Dante said. If I leave you here, you're a target. If I send you away, you're dead. Beside me is the safest place in Chicago tonight. Besides, he walked to the door and opened it. A team of people stylists, a tailor, a makeup artist were waiting in the hallway with racks of clothing. I need a date, and everyone else I know wants to kill me or marry me for my money. You just want your Honda Civic back. You're the only honest person I know. The transformation took 4 hours. They scrubbed the grime of the city from her skin. They conditioned her hair until it cascaded down her back like liquid obsidian. They painted her nails a deep blood red. The dress was emerald green silk, backless, with a slit that ran up to her thigh. It fit her like a second skin, accentuating curves Minna had hidden under baggy sweatshirts for years. When she looked in the mirror, she didn't recognize the woman staring back. The hollow cheeks were contoured into elegance. The fear in her eyes was masked by smoky eyeshadow. She looked dangerous. She looked like a Mafia wife. She walked out into the living room. Dante was waiting, dressed in a tuxedo that made his broad shoulders look even wider. He was adjusting his cufflinks. He stopped. He didn't say anything. He just stared. His eyes traveled from her heels to her eyes, and for a moment the room felt devoid of oxygen. Do I pass? Minna asked, tugging self-consciously at the silk. Dante cleared his throat, stepping forward. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a diamond necklace. It was heavy, cold, and brilliant. "Turn around," he commanded. Minna turned. He clasped the necklace around her throat. His fingers lingered on the nape of her neck for a second longer than necessary. "You don't just pass, Minna," he whispered near her ear. "You conquer. Now listen to me. Tonight you speak to no one about where you came from. You are Sophia. You are a distant cousin of my mother's from Italy. You speak very little English. You smile, you drink champagne, and you stay glued to my side. Do you understand? I don't speak Italian," Minna hissed. "Then just smile and nod. It's what most of the people there do anyway." The drive to the hotel ballroom was tense. Dante checked a pistol tucked into a holster beneath his jacket. He handed Minna a small, sleek clutch purse. "There is a knife in there," he said. "A switchblade. Push the button, the blade comes out. Do not use it unless I am dead." "Comforting," Minna muttered, clutching the bag like a lifeline. The gala was a sensory overload. Crystal chandeliers the size of cars hung from the ceiling. A live orchestra played Mozart. The room smelled of expensive perfume and hypocrisy. As Dante and Minna entered the room, went silent. Hundreds of eyes turned toward them. Dante walked with a slight limp, but he owned it. He looked like a wounded lion, still the king of the jungle. He held Minna's arm, firmly guiding her through the sea of sharks. "Dante." "We heard terrible things." A man approached them. He was tall, with silver hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He grasped Dante's hand. "Vincent," Dante said, his voice cool. "As you can see, rumors of my demise were greatly exaggerated." Minna watched the interaction closely. This was Vincent Moretti, Dante's cousin. Minna had seen him on the news, a legitimate businessman with a chain of nightclubs. Vincent turned his gaze to Minna. His eyes were predatory. They stripped her naked right there in the ballroom. "And who is this exquisite creature?" Vincent asked, taking Minna's hand and kissing the knuckles. "I don't believe we've been introduced." "This is Sophia," Dante said, pulling Minna slightly back. "She's visiting." "Sophia," Vincent purred. "Enchanting. You must save a dance for me." "She doesn't dance," Dante said sharply. "We have a table to get to." They moved away, but Minna felt Vincent's eyes boring into her back. "He hates you," Minna whispered. "He wants my chair," Dante replied, scanning the room. "He thinks he's next in line. He's sloppy, greedy, and impatient. But he's not smart enough to cut my brake lines. He would have used a bomb. No, the person who tried to kill me is subtler." They sat at the head table. Minna picked at her lobster risotto, her nerves making it impossible to eat. She watched the waiters. Years of working in diners had given Minna a specific skill set. She noticed the flow of a room. She knew how service staff moved. She knew the rhythm of a kitchen. She watched a waiter pouring wine at a nearby table. He was young, nervous. His hand shook. She watched another waiter near the kitchen doors. He wasn't serving. He was standing with his back to the wall, scanning the room. He was wearing dress shoes, not the standard issue, non-slip service shoes. They were expensive leather brogues, and there was a bulge under his vest. Minna nudged Dante under the table. "Don't look," she whispered, a fake smile plastered on her face. "But the waiter by the kitchen, the one with the scar on his neck. He's not a waiter." Dante stiffened. "How do you know? He's wearing a $10,000 Rolex," Minna said. "And he's standing in the blind spot, the place where the cameras don't reach. Lou used to yell at the dishwashers for standing there to smoke. Plus, he hasn't picked up a single tray in 20 minutes. Dante subtly shifted his gaze. He saw the man. He saw the watch. He saw the earpiece. "Damn it," Dante swore softly. It's a hit. Here. Now. What do we do? Minna asked, her heart hammering against the emerald silk. We leave. Walk toward the exit. Slowly. Keep smiling. Dante stood up, buttoning his jacket. He offered Minna his hand. Shall we get some fresh air, my dear? He said loudly enough for the table to hear. They began to walk. It felt like walking through molasses. Every step took an eternity. They were 10 feet from the double doors leading to the lobby when the music stopped. Not a natural stop. A screech of feedback as a microphone was dropped. The waiter with the Rolex reached into a serving tray on a nearby table. He didn't pull out an appetizer. He pulled out a submachine gun. Dante! Minna screamed. She threw herself at Dante, shoving him hard. He stumbled back just as the air where his head had been was filled with bullets. Glass shattered. People screamed. The ballroom descended into chaos. The noise was deafening. The elegant orchestra music was replaced by the staccato bark of automatic fire and the terrified shrieks of Chicago's elite. Dante hit the floor, dragging Minna down with him behind an overturned ice sculpture table. Blocks of ice exploded above them, showering them in shards. "Stay down!" Dante roared, drawing his pistol. He popped up, fired 2 shots, and ducked back down. A body hit the floor nearby. "There are 4 of them," Minna yelled, covering her head. "I saw 2 more by the east exit." "We can't go out the front," Dante shouted over the din. "The kitchen. We have to go through the kitchen." He grabbed her hand. "Run!" They sprinted. Minna kicked off her high heels, running barefoot across the broken glass and slippery marble. They stayed low, weaving between panicked guests who were serving as unwitting human shields. Bullets chewed up the plaster behind them. They burst through the swinging doors into the kitchen. It was a labyrinth of stainless steel. Chefs were cowering under prep tables. "Out the back loading dock," Dante commanded. They ran past the stoves, the heat intense. A man in a waiter's uniform stepped out from the walk-in freezer, raising a gun. Dante was too far away. He couldn't make the shot in time. Minna didn't think. She swung the heavy clutch purse with all her might. The metal corner cracked against the gunman's temple. He grunted and stumbled, his shot going wide and hitting a pot of boiling stock. Dante finished him with a single shot to the chest. "Nice swing," Dante panted, grabbing her arm again. "I played softball in middle school," Minna yelled back, adrenaline making her giddy. They burst out the back door onto the loading dock. The cold night air hit them like a slap. A black van was screeching around the corner, tires smoking. Men were jumping out. They blocked the exits, Dante realized. They knew we'd come this way. "The alley," Minna pointed. "There's a fire escape on the old brick building next door. I used to sleep on the roof sometimes. I know the way up. Lead the way." For the first time, the homeless waitress was the leader, and the Mafia boss was the follower. Minna scrambled up a dumpster, her expensive dress tearing on the rusty metal. She leaped for the bottom rung of the fire escape ladder. Her weight pulled it down with a screech of protesting metal. "Climb!" she screamed. Dante followed his bad shoulder, making him grunt in agony with every pull. They scrambled up the iron stairs, just as bullets sparked off the brickwork below them. They reached the roof. It was a flat expanse of tar and gravel, connected to the neighboring buildings by low walls. "We have to keep moving," Minna said, breathless. "If we cross the roofs, we can get down on State Street 3 blocks over." Dante leaned against a chimney stack, gasping. He was pale, sweating profusely. The exertion had torn his stitches open. A dark stain was spreading on his white shirt. I need a minute," he wheezed. Minna looked at him. The invincible Dante Moretti was fading. "We don't have a minute," she said. She grabbed his good arm and draped it over her shoulders. "Come on. You walked out of a sinking car. You can walk across a roof." They stumbled across the rooftops of Chicago. Below them, sirens wailed, converging on the hotel. "Why?" Dante asked, his voice slurred. "You could have run. You could have left me in the kitchen. I told you." Minna gritted her teeth under his weight. "I don't leave people behind. It's a bad habit." They reached the final fire escape. Minna guided him down into a dark, garbage-filled alley behind a Chinese restaurant. They were safe momentarily, but they were stranded. Dante was bleeding out. Minna was barefoot, shivering in a torn silk dress. They had no phones. Minna's was in her old clothes. Dante's had fallen out during the run. No car, and no backup. Dante slid down the brick wall, sitting amidst the trash bags. He looked up at Minna. The moonlight caught the diamonds still around her neck, a stark contrast to the filth around them. "My safe house," Dante whispered, his eyes closing. "South Side, old meatpacking plant. But I can't walk." Minna looked around. She saw a beat-up delivery van idling near the back door of the restaurant. The driver was inside, probably picking up an order. She looked at Dante. Then she looked at the van. "Do you know how to hot-wire a car?" she asked. Dante smirked weakly. "I'm a mobster, Minna. I stole my first car when I was 12. "Good," Minna said, helping him up. "Because we're stealing a ride." The waitress and the wolf were now truly alone in the wild. The stolen delivery van rattled like a tin can full of marbles. It smelled of stale bread and exhaust fumes. Minna drove with white-knuckled intensity, her bare feet slipping on the rubber pedals. Beside her, Dante was fading fast. The adrenaline from the rooftop escape had burned off, leaving behind the stark reality of blood loss. His skin was the color of ash. His head lolled against the passenger window. "Stay with me, Dante," Minna shouted, swerving to avoid a pothole on the dark industrial road of the South Side. "Do not fall asleep. I'm awake." He mumbled, his voice a ghost of its former command. "Turn right at the rusted gate." They pulled into the lot of the abandoned meatpacking plant. It was a skeletal structure of brick and broken glass looming in the darkness. Minna killed the engine. "We're here," she said. There was no answer. Dante was unconscious. Panic, cold and sharp, spiked in Minna's chest. She didn't have time to be afraid. She scrambled out of the driver's seat, ran to the passenger side, and hauled the door open. He was dead weight again, just like the river. But this time there was no water to help with buoyancy. She gritted her teeth, grabbed him under the arms, and pulled. He slid out, his legs buckling. Minna collapsed under his weight, her knees slamming into the gravel. "Come on, you stubborn ox," she grunted, tears stinging her eyes. She hauled him up, draping his arm over her shoulders. They stumbled into the building. It was freezing inside, smelling of old iron and dust. Dante had given her the code to the hidden freight elevator before he passed out. She punched it in with trembling fingers. The basement wasn't a dungeon. It was a fully equipped medical bay and armory. A contingency plan. She dragged him onto a metal surgical table. She ripped open his shirt. The stitches on his shoulder were gone. The wound was a jagged, bleeding mess. Minna frantically searched the cabinets. She found saline gauze, a suture kit, and a bottle of high-proof whiskey. She didn't have anesthesia. She poured the whiskey over the wound. Dante roared, his back arching off the table, his eyes snapping open in shock. "Sorry," Minna yelled, pushing him back down. "I have to stitch it." "Hold still," For the next hour, the homeless waitress became a trauma surgeon. She worked with a focus she didn't know she possessed. She cleaned the wound, stitched the torn muscle and skin, and set up an IV drip she found in the supplies. When it was done, she slumped into a chair. Her emerald dress ruined, covered in the blood of the most dangerous man in Chicago. Silence settled over the room. The only sound was the steady beep, beep of the heart monitor. Minna watched him. In sleep, the harsh lines of his face softened. He didn't look like a monster. He looked like a man who had been fighting a war alone for too long. She reached out and brushed a lock of dark hair from his forehead. "Why me?" she whispered to the sleeping figure. "Why did you save me?" His hand shot out, grabbing her wrist. Minna gasped, trying to pull away, but his grip was gentle. His eyes opened groggy but clear. "Because," he rasped, his voice thick, "you're the only one who didn't run." He pulled her hand to his lips, kissing her palm. "Minna," he said, looking at her with an intensity that made her toes curl. "When we get out of this, I am going to buy you a car, a fleet of cars. I'm going to buy you the whole damn city if you want it." "I don't want the city, Dante," she said softly. "I just want to survive the night." "We will," Dante said, sitting up with a groan. He swung his legs off the table. The IV line tugged. "But to do that, we have to stop playing defense. It's time to play offense." "You can barely stand," Minna argued. "I don't need to stand to make a phone call," Dante said. He reached for a burner phone stored in the emergency kit. "I know who betrayed me." "Vincent." "Vincent is the muscle," Dante said, dialing a number. "But Vincent isn't smart enough to jam the security cameras at the gala. He had help, someone on the inside, someone I trusted with my life." He put the phone to his ear. "Hello, Marco," Dante said into the phone. His voice was ice cold. "I'm alive. Meet me at the plant. Bring the car, and bring Vincent." He hung up. Minna stared at him. "You just invited the killers here. Are you insane?" "It's a trap, Minna," Dante said, walking over to the wall of weapons. He pulled down a shotgun and racked the slide. "Marco is my head of security. He's the only one who knew the camera blind spots. He sold me out to my cousin. So you called him here to kill us?" "No." Dante turned to her, a dark, terrifying smile playing on his lips. "I called him here to remind him why I'm the boss." He handed Minna a heavy pistol. "Do you know how to use this? I've never held a gun in my life," Minna said, her hands shaking as she took the cold steel. "Point, pull. Don't close your eyes," Dante said. "Go hide in the vents, above the main floor. If things go wrong, you rain hell on them." "I'm not leaving you down here," Minna said. "You're not leaving me," Dante said. "You're my ace in the hole. Now go." The silence in the abandoned meatpacking plant was heavy, a physical weight that pressed against the eardrums. It smelled of things long dead rust rot, and the phantom scent of old copper blood soaked into the concrete floor. Minna Jenkins was crouched 20 feet in the air, her knees pressed against the cold grating of a rusted steel catwalk. Her breath came in shallow, terrified hitches. Below her, the vast warehouse was a cavern of shadows, illuminated only by a single flickering halogen work light that Dante had set up on a wooden table in the center of the room. Dante sat there, a lone figure in a wooden chair. To an outsider, he looked defeated. He was slumped forward, a bottle of amber whiskey in his hand, his shoulders hunched as if the weight of his empire had finally crushed him. But Minna knew better. She could see the tension in his forearms, the way his finger tapped a silent rhythm against the glass. Hidden in the shadows of the table resting across his lap was the pump-action shotgun. "Don't close your eyes," he had told her. Minna gripped the heavy pistol he had given her. It felt alien in her hands, cold, greasy, and terrifyingly lethal. She was a waitress. She poured coffee. She remembered people's orders. She didn't kill people. Her hands were shaking so violently that the barrel of the gun rattled against the metal railing. "Breathe," she told herself. "Just breathe. If you mess this up, he dies." The sound of tires crunching on gravel outside shattered the silence. It was followed by the heavy thud of car doors slamming. Minna pressed herself flatter against the grate. The metal sliding door of the warehouse screeched open on rusted tracks. 3 silhouettes stepped into the pool of dim light. Vincent Moretti walked in first. He was wearing a camel hair coat and a smug grin that looked carved into his face. He looked like a man who had already won the lottery. Behind him was Marco, the head of security, looking shifting and nervous, his eyes darting to the dark corners of the room. A third man, a hired gun with a shaved head and a scar across his neck, brought up the rear, carrying an automatic rifle. "Cousin!" Vincent's voice boomed, echoing off the corrugated metal roof. "You look terrible. Truly. I heard the river water in Chicago is particularly nasty this time of year." Dante didn't look up. He swirled the whiskey in his glass. "Just a dip, Vincent. I needed to cool off." "I'll bet." Vincent walked closer, stopping 10 feet away. He gestured to the empty warehouse. "A bit melodramatic, isn't it? Meeting in a slaughterhouse, I expected you to be on a private jet to the Caymans by now." "I don't run," Dante said softly. He finally looked up. His eyes were dark voids, devoid of fear. "And I don't leave loose ends." Marco stepped forward, his submachine gun raised but shaking slightly. "You said you were alone, boss. You said we could talk." "I am alone, Marco." Dante lied, his voice steady. "Just me, the bottle, and the man who sold me out for a promise of a promotion." Marco flinched. "It wasn't like that." Vincent said, "He said you were weak, that you were letting the business rot." "So you cut my brake lines?" Dante asked, his tone almost conversational. "You've worked for me for 10 years. You held my coat at my father's funeral, and you tried to drown me like a rat." "It's business, Dante," Vincent interrupted, stepping between them. He pulled a gold-plated pistol from his waistband. "You always thought you were better than us. You wanted to go legitimate. You forgot that in our world the strongest dog eats. And you've lost your teeth." Vincent looked around the room, his eyes narrowing. "Where is the girl?" he asked sharply. "The little stray from the gala, I saw her drag you out of the kitchen. She has spirit. I was hoping to finish what I started." Minna's heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. "He's looking for me." "She's gone," Dante said, his voice hardening. "I gave her some money and put her on a bus to Iowa. She's nobody. This is family business." Vincent laughed. It was a cruel, wet sound. "Family business. That's rich coming from a corpse. Goodbye, cousin. Say hello to Uncle Sal in hell." Vincent raised the gun, aiming directly at Dante's chest. Dante didn't flinch. He looked up, his eyes locking onto the darkness of the rafters. "Now!" he roared. Minna didn't think. Instinct took over, a primal need to protect the man who had treated her like a queen when everyone else treated her like trash. She squeezed the trigger. She didn't aim for a person. She wasn't a killer. She aimed for the heavy chain hoist hanging directly above the hired gunman's head. Bang! The recoil nearly dislocated her wrist. The bullet sparked off the metal block of the hoist, sending a shower of hot sparks raining down. The noise was deafening in the enclosed space. The distraction worked perfectly. The gunman looked up, startled by the noise and light. Dante moved with a speed that defied his injuries. He kicked the wooden table over, using it as a momentary shield. In the same motion, he brought the shotgun up. Boom! The blast was thunderous. The hired gunman flew backward, as if yanked by an invisible wire, his chest a ruin. He hit the ground and didn't move. Ambush! Vincent screamed, scrambling for cover behind a thick concrete pillar. Marco panicked. He raised his submachine gun and sprayed bullets blindly toward Dante's overturned table. Concrete chips flew into the air. Up there! Marco screamed, spotting the muzzle flash from the catwalk. The girl is up there! He swung his weapon toward the ceiling. Bullets pinged off the metal grating inches from Minna's face. She screamed, curling into a ball covering her head as sparks and metal fragments showered her. Dante! She shrieked. Hearing her scream flipped a switch in Dante. He broke cover. He ignored the pain in his shoulder, ignored the blood seeping through his shirt. He charged Marco. He fired the shotgun again. Click. Empty. He didn't stop. He used the shotgun like a baseball bat. He swung it with all his remaining strength, the wooden stock smashing into Marco's wrist. Bone crunched with a sickening snap. Marco dropped the gun, howling in pain. Dante tackled him. They hit the floor hard. Dante, weakened by blood loss, was running on pure adrenaline. He headbutted Marco once, twice, knocking the traitor unconscious. But the fight wasn't over. Very good, Dante. Dante looked up, gasping for air. Vincent stepped out from behind the pillar. He had a clear line of sight. Dante was on his knees, unarmed, exhausted, bleeding. You always were a scrapper, Vincent sneered, leveling his gold-plated pistol at Dante's head. But you can't fight a bullet. Time seemed to slow down. Minna peered over the edge of the catwalk. She saw Dante look up at the barrel of the gun. He didn't look afraid. He looked accepting. No, Minna thought. No, you don't get to die. Not after the river. Not after the roof. Not after I stitched you up. She stood up. She didn't have cover. She didn't have a shield. She stood tall on the catwalk, her emerald dress tattered and stained with grease, her hair wild and matted. She looked like a vengeful spirit rising from the wreckage. She leveled the heavy pistol. She remembered Dante's voice. Point. Pull. Don't close your eyes. Hey! Minna screamed. Vincent looked up, startled. His eyes widened as he saw the homeless waitress aiming down at him. You! He scoffed, shifting his aim toward her. You don't have the guts, you little... Minna didn't let him finish. She exhaled, steadying her shaking hands, and pulled the trigger. Bang! The shot echoed for an eternity. Vincent Moretti stiffened. He looked down at his chest. A small, dark red blossom was spreading rapidly on his camel hair coat, right over his heart. He looked confused. He touched it, his fingers coming away red. He looked up at Minna, his mouth opening and closing silently. The arrogance drained from his face, replaced by shock. The stray, he gurgled. His knees buckled. He collapsed forward, hitting the concrete face first. The gold gun clattered across the floor. Silence rushed back into the warehouse, louder than the gunfire. Dante knelt there for a moment, chest heaving. He looked at Marco's unconscious body, then at Vincent's motionless form. Then slowly, he craned his neck to look up at the catwalk. Minna lowered the gun. Her fingers went numb, and the weapon clattered to the metal grating. Her legs gave out, and she sank to her knees, gripping the railing. Sobs racked her body, violent shaking sobs that she couldn't control. Dante didn't wait. He forced himself up. He stumbled to the iron maintenance ladder, bolted to the wall. Every rung was agony for his shoulder, but he climbed. He climbed until he reached the platform. He pulled himself over the railing and crawled toward her. "Minna," he choked out. She looked up, her face streaked with grime tears and mascara. Her eyes were wide with horror. "I killed him. Dante, I killed him." "You saved me," Dante whispered fiercely. He reached out and pulled her into his arms. "You saved us." She buried her face in his neck, clutching his shirt, weeping into the fabric. The smell of gunpowder and blood was thick, but underneath it, she could smell him sandalwood and life. "It's over," he murmured, stroking her hair with a trembling hand. "Nobody is ever going to hurt you again. I swear it on my life. I swear it." He pulled back to look at her. He wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb, smearing a bit of dirt, but he didn't care. To him, in that dim light, she was the most beautiful, terrifying thing he had ever seen. She was a warrior. "You're not a waitress anymore, Minna," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "And you sure as hell aren't homeless." He leaned in and kissed her. It wasn't the polite kiss of a date. It was desperate. It was passionate. It was a promise sealed in adrenaline and survival. It tasted of copper and salt, a collision of two broken people who had somehow managed to fit their jagged edges together perfectly. Dante Moretti had walked into that warehouse prepared to die, but as he held the girl who had dragged him from the river, he realized for the first time in his life he finally had something worth living for. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the incredible true story of Minna and Dante. From a sinking Maserati in the freezing Chicago River to the top of the underworld, it proves that sometimes the biggest twists in life happen when you decide to help a stranger. Now I have to ask you, if you saw a car go off a bridge at 2 a.m. and you knew getting involved could ruin your life, would you jump in? Be honest in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And if you want more insane true stories of crime survival and romance, hit subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss a video. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there.